Thank you so much, Heike, for the kind introduction. And yes, for those of us who know Gene Rodberg, um, it is a very, very tall order for me, but I'm honored that he thinks that I'm one of those who can contribute my own bit. This is such an emotional event for me. And watching the video made me realize the power that each one of us as individuals have to build the world that we would like to see. So I want to say how honored I am to welcome each one of you personally to what I believe is a historic celebration that marks a milestone in the development of not just green bond markets, but of sustainable capital markets. It is, of course, a celebration of the 10th anniversary of the first ever labeled green bond, which we at the World Bank were honored to issue 10 years ago in November 2008. Each one of you has contributed to the evolution of the green bond market since then. But I'm sure that even more significant is that today, each one of us is a champion of what we believe is a revolution that green bonds will inspire in the years to come. And I say that because we do have some students in the room who are future leaders. And I believe that we can hand the baton on to you, students, to lead the charge. I must reiterate our sincere appreciation to you, Christopher, and your colleagues at SCB, to our pioneer investors, and to my own team, and notably Heike. Because your foresight, your commitment, and your hard work is why we can look back on the success of the last 10 years. Thank you. My gratitude also goes to the many investors who have sought to connect returns and purpose, as well as our bankers, other issuers, scientists, notably Cicero, and advocates such as Cerise. Thank you, Dr. Mindy Luber, for honoring our invitation, and more importantly, for what you and your team have been doing for this space. I also celebrate the International Capital Markets Association for the pivotal role that they continue to play. Together, we have built a green bond market that, as Christopher highlighted, has grown in leaps and bounds. But more importantly, has established exemplary standards and practices, notably transparency, accountability, and the reporting on use of proceeds and project impact. Our journey at the World Bank has led to the issuance, not $10 billion, but $12.6 billion since that video was done, through 150 transactions in 20 currencies: Swedish krona, Norwegian krona, US dollars, euros, Japanese yen, Canadian dollars, Aussie dollars, Brazilian real, Colombian pesos, Hungarian forint, Indian rupees, Indonesian rupiah, Malaysian ringgit, Mexican pesos, Hong Kong dollars, New Zealand dollars, Polish zloty, Russian ruble, Turkish lira, South African rand. Investor categories have ranged from European and US asset managers, pension funds, and retail investors, US state treasuries, Japanese life insurance companies, and banks, to bank treasuries and dedicated socially responsible investors and green funds. All investors have sought to not only earn a reasonable return, but to also positively impact society. This week alone, we've issued bonds totaling $1.5 billion, including 7-year and 9-year transactions in Aussie dollars, in euros, and in US dollars. And one was printed last night. And I have to say to myself, I thought, if it is the celebration of the 10-year anniversary, maybe I should do that every week so that I can print $1.5 billion of bonds every week. But I have a great team, and this week is particularly significant. And I will look back 10 years and say, well, we did $1.5 billion, and I hope the people who will come before us will say, oh no, we did $15 billion in 1 week. And that is the revolution that I'm talking about. Equally important is that our journey started with one transaction and establishing the criteria for eligible green bond projects, then inspired the green bond principles and the second-party opinions to give investors assurances that eligible projects would address climate change. We're also the first to commit to investor reporting on the use of green proceeds and the expected project impact. Also crucial is how we've applied the same principles to developing other thematic bonds, to promoting the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and to sustainability more generally. For example, this year, we used our bonds to raise awareness for pressing global issues. In January, we issued a $1 billion Canadian benchmark transaction anchored by a Canadian ESG investor, Addenda Capital, to raise awareness about the important role of women empowerment in building sustainable societies. I'm glad that the CEO of Addenda, Roger Hutcham, is able to join us today as a speaker. In July, we issued a series of sustainable development bonds to highlight the critical need for investment in the well-being, health, and nutrition of women and children. These bonds raised nearly $1 billion equivalent from institutional and retail investors in Canada, in the US, in Japan, and in Europe. At the end of August, we launched a campaign to engage investors around the precious asset, water. In particular, SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, SDG 14, life below water, as well as the World Bank's strategic focus on conservation and sustainable use of fresh and saltwater resources. We have committed under this initiative, and thank you, Laura, my sister and partner at the World Bank, we have committed that we'll raise $3 billion by the end of June 2016. And so far, we've done $600 million. So we may have to raise that commitment, Laura. Or you may make us raise that commitment, I know. Not only have we opened new markets and collectively transformed investor behavior, we've also supported our client countries, including the ASEAN countries, in developing the Sukuk Green Bond Principles. I'm glad that the Deputy CEO of the Malaysian SEC is also here with us, because SEC Malaysia worked with us on these principles. We're also pleased to have worked with Fiji, Indonesia, Nigeria on their recent bond transactions. For us at the World Bank, our mission is anchored on sustainability and rooted on our twin goals of ending extreme poverty and boosting shared prosperity. We bring a unique combination of financing, of knowledge and experience to promote sustainability and to tackle the world's most complex challenges, whether they be climate, gender, nutrition, pandemics, and natural disasters. And let me give an example with natural disasters and the capital markets. Since last year, July last year, we've leveraged the carbon markets to transfer sovereign disaster risk totaling $2 billion to the capital markets, helping countries such as Chile, Colombia, Mexico, Peru, insure themselves against earthquake and hurricanes. This has also helped investors in insurance-linked securities, pension funds, and other asset managers diversify their investments and earn higher returns while contributing to the climate change agenda. We also believe that thought leadership will spur the sustainability revolution. And of course, Paul Oteh, the senior managing partner at Lombard Odier, is a champion of the sustainability revolution. And Paul, I'm also glad that you're able to be personally here with us. Thank you. Last year, many of you know that we partnered with Japan's Government Pension Investment Fund, the largest pension fund in the world, an asset owner of assets totaling $1.4 trillion. Our partnership included research on fixed income sustainable investing. It is also why we decided that we will leverage this important milestone of celebrating the world's first ever labeled green bond to look back, as Heike said, on the lessons from the last 10 years and together craft a roadmap for mainstreaming sustainable capital markets. I understand that a number of you were at yesterday's investor roundtable that we organized, and that the discussions were informative, they were candid about the challenges and opportunities that sustainability offers us. So I want to thank all of our investors who participated in that roundtable. I also just want to thank our keynote speakers today, Mindy, Paul, and Laura, as well as our moderators and all of the distinguished panelists that we'll hear from this morning. Before I close, permit me to share some of the reflections that I had over the last month thinking about this event. First, we have no doubt made significant progress in the journey of mainstreaming sustainability. In 2007, we were all prompted to do something by an urgent call for action following a definitive United Nations report linking human action to global warming, and to find a meaningful way to contribute using capital markets and finance. In 2015, global leaders sharpened the focus on sustainability through establishing the 2030 Agenda and through the landmark Paris Agreement, with notable commitments such as maintaining global warming below 2 degrees Celsius. There are also several initiatives that have galvanized the private sector. For example, the Principles of Responsible Investment Initiative has almost 2,000 signatories today. and the Sustainable Stock Exchange Initiative brings together 70 partner exchanges from around the world, representing a market capitalization of over $60 trillion and 38,000 listed companies. So there is a lot of momentum. Unfortunately, as all of you know, on the 8th of October, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released their report indicating that not enough was being done to meet the targets agreed upon, and made a case for even a greater focus on maintaining global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. This, of course, reinforces the widely held view that climate change is the greatest risk of our time. Climate change, of course, poses a severe threat to global development, to the poorest and to the most vulnerable, to my own continent, the continent of Africa. At the same time, though, I believe that it presents significant business and economic opportunities that make it the opportunity of our time. Our experts at the World Bank estimate that globally, the transition to low-carbon and climate-resilient economy could yield direct economic gains of $26 trillion by 2030, compared to the status quo. They also note that low-carbon, climate-resilient infrastructure investments could amount to over $90 trillion. This is an amount that is almost twice the value of the infrastructure that is currently in place. This indeed is an opportunity of our time, because there are also obvious benefits in terms of new jobs, in terms of competitiveness, in terms of innovation, in terms of improved well-being. It is why those of us in this event today must continue to be at the forefront of accelerating the global response to climate change. In the same way we together instigated the movement that connects returns to purpose, we must together instigate a broad sustainability revolution. And I believe the first steps are what we're going to do today, which is to engage in discussions. But I hope that these discussions will generate tangible, concrete ideas, and that we'll hold our feet to the fire, that every year we'll look back and say, yes, we've made progress on the sustainability revolution. Because I do think that it is an existential crisis for us, for our planet, if we do nothing. So let me end by borrowing from President Macron's words last week about peace during the 100th year anniversary of the end of the First World War. He said, "We will not be able to say to generations we did not know. Peace is our treasure and responsibility." I agree with him on peace, but I also say we will not be able to say to future generations we did not know. Saving our planet is also our treasure and responsibility. So let the revolution begin. Thank you.